Let me tell you about two 18-year-olds. They were just starting out in life, and they had their whole futures ahead of them. They graduated high school together. It was a day filled with celebration and the promise of what was to come next. They grew up in the same town, they had the same opportunities, and they both stood at the exact same starting point in their lives. The first one, let us call her Sarah, did exactly what everyone told her she should do. She followed the traditional path that was laid out for her. She went to a state university to study communications. She was ready to work hard for the future she was promised. She worked hard for 4 years. She was dedicated and focused, doing everything that was expected of a top-tier student in her field. Sarah finally graduated with her degree, but it came at a massive price. She walked across that stage with $100,000 in student loan debt. She is 22 years old and eager to start her life, but she is already over $100,000 in the hole before she has even earned her first real paycheck. The second student, let us call him Mike, took a completely different path. Instead of going to college, he entered the workforce immediately after high school. He got an entry-level job at a local company, making $36,000 a year. It was not glamorous, but he was earning money while Sarah was borrowing it. He lived at home for 2 years to save every penny he could, and then he moved into a very cheap apartment with roommates. It was a lifestyle of discipline and sacrifice. And here is the thing that nobody really talks about. At the age of 18, he started investing $300 a month into an index fund. By the time Sarah graduated at 22 with her communications degree, Mike already had 4 full years of work experience and absolutely zero debt. Mike had about $17,000 invested and ready to grow. The difference between their starting points as adults was becoming incredibly clear. The gap between them at age 22 was not just the $102,000 Sarah owed. It was a total difference of $119,000 in net worth. And here is what is going to make you feel very uncomfortable. Depending on how the next few decades play out, Sarah might not actually catch up to Mike until she is 65 years old. This is not because she is less intelligent or less hardworking than Mike. It is simply because nobody ever showed her the actual math before she signed those legal loan documents at the age of 18 years old. My name is Kyle, and I spend way too much time thinking about the systemic traps that are laid out for young people before they are even old enough to sign a legal contract. If you are someone who is currently drowning in student loan payments, or if you are a parent trying to figure out if college is actually worth the price tag in 2026, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we are not talking about the college experience or the intangible value of learning. We are talking about cold, hard return on investment. We are going to calculate the break-even age. We are looking at the horrifying mathematical reality that proves for millions of people going to college actually makes you poorer than if you had simply started working at 18. Here is the thing. I need to be very clear about what this video is and what it is not. I am not anti-education. I am not saying learning is bad or that knowledge does not have value. What I am saying is that college has transformed from an investment into a financial product. And like any financial product, you need to understand the actual return on investment before you buy it. The problem is that we have been conditioned to see college as something sacred, something beyond financial calculation, almost a moral imperative. The idea that you have to go to college has been drilled into multiple generations as absolute truth. But here is what nobody wants to admit. The math has completely changed. We cannot use the logic of the past to justify the costs of today. In 1980, the average cost of tuition, fees, and room and board at a public 4-year university was about $10,000 per year in today's inflation-adjusted dollars. Today, that same education costs over $23,000 per year at in-state public schools. The price for the exact same product has more than doubled. If you look at private universities, the cost is even more staggering, reaching over $53,000 every year. This is a massive financial burden for any young person to carry. That is a 130% increase in real costs over just 40 years. Education is becoming one of the most expensive things you will ever buy. Meanwhile, what happened to wages for college graduates? According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, real wages for college graduates have been essentially flat since the year 2000. The cost of the product more than doubled, but the financial return has not increased at all. If any other investment worked like this, if you paid twice as much for returns that stayed flat, you would call it a scam. But because it is education, we are not allowed to question it. Let me walk you through the actual break-even math because this is where it gets genuinely disturbing. I am going to compare two scenarios, and I want you to follow the numbers very carefully. Scenario A is the traditional path. A high school graduate goes to a public four-year university. The student takes out loans to cover all costs and eventually graduates at 22 with $100,000 in student loan debt at an average interest rate of 6.5%. They then get a job making $52,000 a year. This is roughly the median starting salary for bachelor's degree holders, according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Now let us look at scenario B, which is the alternative path. In this version, a high school graduate skips college entirely and starts working at the age of 18. This person starts at an entry-level job making $35,000 a year and invests $400 every month into an index fund that returns an average of 8% annually. There is no college experience and no degree here. It is simply 4 years of earning and investing, while their peer is on the other side accumulating massive amounts of debt. Let us see where they each stand at age 22 when the college graduate finally enters the workforce. The graduate has a degree and a $52,000 salary, but they have a negative $100,000 net worth. The non-college worker now has 4 years of experience and has worked their way up to a $40,000 salary. They also have roughly $22,000 already invested. The net worth gap at age 22 is $122,000 in favor of the person who skipped college. This is a staggering head start that most people completely overlook when they talk about the value of a degree. Now, the college graduate does have a higher salary of about $10,000 to $12,000 more per year, but they also have massive loan payments. You have to look at what is actually left in the pocket after the bank takes its cut. $100,000 at 6.5% on a standard 10-year repayment plan is about $1,137 a month. That is over $13,600 every single year. So even though the college graduate earns more gross income, after debt payments they actually have less money available for living expenses and investing than the person who skipped college. The higher salary is an illusion of wealth. This financial struggle continues for 10 long years until the loans are finally paid off. For a full decade, the graduate is running a race with a heavy weight tied to their ankles. Now let us run this forward and find the actual break-even point. This is the exact age at which the college graduate finally catches up in net worth. I have modeled this entire situation in a detailed spreadsheet to see the truth. In this model, the worker who skipped college continues to invest $400 every month throughout their entire career. They are building wealth steadily, without any debt holding them back. The college graduate only starts investing an equivalent amount at the age of 32. This only happens after they have finally finished paying off their massive student loans. To keep the comparison fair, I gave both people average annual raises of 3%. I also assumed that both of their investments would return an average of 8% annually. The crossover point where the net worth of the college graduate finally exceeds the worker occurs at the age of 54. Let me say that again, so it really sinks in. If you take out $100,000 in student loans for an average paying degree, you will not financially catch up to someone who skipped college and invested consistently until you are 65 years old. You will have spent 32 years, which is the majority of your working life, in a worse financial position than someone who never set foot on a college campus. And this is the median scenario. This is not a worst-case example. This is simply what happens with average debt, average salaries, and average investment returns. For lower-paying majors, the break-even point gets pushed even further out. The numbers become even more discouraging when we look at specific fields of study. According to the Georgetown University Center on Education and Workforce, the median early career salary for social work majors is $38,000. For psychology majors, it is $36,000, and for fine arts, it is $35,000. At these specific salary levels with $100,000 in debt, the break-even point is not age 54. It is age 65 or even later. In some cases, you literally never catch up. You actually retire poorer than you would have been if you had simply started working at 18 years old. This is not speculation, and it is not just an opinion. This is simple and direct arithmetic. The numbers speak for themselves. Now, you might be thinking, Kyle, this is cherry picking. What about engineering? What about computer science? Or what about nursing and accounting? And you are absolutely right to push back on this. The return on investment of college varies enormously by major, and this is exactly my point. College is not universally good or universally bad. It is a financial decision that makes a lot of sense in some contexts, but it can be absolutely catastrophic in others. According to the Foundation for Equal Opportunity, about a quarter of college programs leave students financially worse off than if they had never attended. That is 1 in 4 programs. 1 in 4 college programs has a negative return on investment. This means that graduates actually earn less over their entire careers than the total cost of the degree itself. But it gets more nuanced than that. For high-return majors like computer science, electrical engineering, nursing, and accounting, the break-even point can be as early as age 30 or 35. For these specific fields, the lifetime earnings premium is substantial. These degrees actually do provide a very strong return on investment for the students who choose them. But here is what most people do not realize. The students who are actually choosing these high-return majors are in the minority. According to the National Center for Education and Statistics, about 18% of bachelor's degrees are in STEM fields. The majority of students are graduating with degrees in business, social sciences, humanities, psychology, and communications. In these fields, the salary premiums are much smaller, and in some cases, they are essentially non-existent. So when someone tells you that college graduates earn $1 million more over their lifetime than high school graduates, they are using an average that is heavily skewed by a small number of high-earning majors. The median college graduate, the one right in the middle, has a much more modest earnings premium. Often, it does not even justify the cost and the opportunity cost of the degree. This is where it gets really interesting, because we need to talk about why people keep making this decision even when the math does not support it. The answer is a combination of social pressure and information asymmetry, along with predatory lending practices targeting children. Yes, I said children. The average college student signs their very first loan document at 17 or 18 years old. They have never had a real job. They have never paid rent. They have never once experienced the crushing psychological weight of carrying debt, and yet we are asking them to commit to what might be the largest financial obligation of their entire lives outside of a mortgage. We would never give a $100,000 business loan to an 18-year-old with no collateral, no business plan, and no work experience. We would call that irresponsible lending, but we do exactly that with student loans, and we call it investing in your future. The entire system is carefully set up to obscure the true cost. Students do not write a physical check for $25,000 every single semester. They sign loan documents they do not fully understand, and the money goes directly to the institution. The pain of payment is completely decoupled from the experience of spending the money. The benefits are immediate and tangible. The social experience, the credential, and the status are all right there, while the costs, the decades of debt payments, are abstract and distant. This is textbook present bias exploitation. Our brains are not naturally wired to weigh a long-term financial disaster against an immediate social reward. The industry has engineered the perfect product to take advantage of how human brains make decisions. They have created a system where the entrance is easy, but the exit is almost impossible. And here is the psychological trap that keeps people defending their degree even when the math is clearly bad. Once you have made an irreversible decision and taken on the debt, admitting it was a mistake is psychologically devastating. So instead, people rationalize. They tell themselves it was worth it for the experience, or they insist they grew so much as a person. They claim that you cannot put a price on education. These things might be true, but they are also exactly what you would expect someone to say when they are trying to avoid confronting a $100,000 mistake. This is called cognitive dissonance, and it is powerful. It is a mental defense mechanism that protects our identity from the pain of a bad financial choice. We saw the same thing with housing in 2008. People insisted their underwater mortgages were still good investments because admitting otherwise was simply too painful. The sunk cost fallacy combines with identity protection to create a nearly impenetrable psychological defense. It makes it almost impossible for someone to look at their situation with pure logic. But here is the thing. Your degree being worth it for you personally does not automatically make it a good financial investment. Those are two very different claims. You can have meaningful experiences and still overpay for them. Just because something was valuable to your soul does not mean the price tag was fair or rational. You can grow as a person and still recognize that there were much cheaper paths to that same growth. Education and expensive schooling are not always the same thing. The inability to separate emotional value from financial value is exactly what allows the current system to persist. It is the fuel that keeps this machine running at your expense. Let me talk about the systemic incentives. Understanding why this happened is vital, because it helps you see through the noise and understand the machine you are dealing with. Colleges have no financial incentive to control costs or to ensure their graduates get jobs that justify the tuition. They get paid the full amount regardless of the actual outcomes for the students. Federal student loans guarantee that colleges can charge essentially whatever they want. This is because students can always borrow more money to meet the rising prices. When you subsidize demand without controlling prices, the prices will always explode. This is basic economics, yet we act surprised when it happens in the education sector. Meanwhile, employers have increasingly used college degrees as a screening mechanism, even for jobs that do not require college-level skills. This phenomenon is what experts call degree inflation. A 2017 Harvard Business School study found that employers routinely require degrees for positions previously filled by non-graduates. This is a massive shift in how the labor market functions. Jobs like executive assistant, production supervisor, and various technical roles now require bachelor degrees. This is true even though the job duties have not changed and do not actually need the skills a degree provides. This creates a vicious cycle. More jobs require degrees, so more people go to college. More people going to college allows colleges to raise their prices even further. Higher prices mean more debt. More debt means more graduates, who are desperate to take any job just to make their loan payments. This eventually suppresses wages for everyone. Employers see a flooded market and raise degree requirements because they can. The cycle simply continues. The entire system is optimized to extract wealth from young people and transfer it to higher education institutions and the financial companies that service the loans. It is not a conspiracy. It is simply incentives playing out exactly as you would expect. Each part of the system is acting in its own financial interest, and the student is the one paying the price. So what do you actually do with all of this information? Let me give you a framework for thinking about college as the financial decision it is, rather than the cultural assumption we have been told it must be. First, if you are considering college, calculate the true all-in cost before you enroll. This includes tuition, fees, room and board, books, and your living expenses for 4 full years. You must also add the opportunity cost of 4 years of lost wages. For many students, this total exceeds $200,000 when you include everything they could have earned. Then look at the median salary for your specific intended major. Do not look at the average for all college graduates, and certainly do not look at the top-end salaries that schools love to advertise. Calculate how long it would take to break even on this investment compared to skipping college and investing. You need to see exactly when the two paths finally meet. If the break-even point is past age 50, you need to seriously question whether this is a rational financial choice. At that point, you are spending the majority of your working life just trying to get back to zero. Second, if you are going to college, major selection is the single most important decision you will make. This choice dictates the entire trajectory of your professional and financial life. The difference in lifetime earnings between the highest and lowest paying majors is over $3 million, according to Georgetown data. This is a staggering amount of money that changes everything. Choosing a major purely based on passion without any consideration of earnings potential is a luxury that people taking on 6 figures of debt simply cannot afford. This does not mean you have to be an engineer, but it does mean you need to be honest about the financial trade-off you are making. Third, exhaust every single option to reduce costs before you ever take on debt. You should look under every stone to keep your borrowing to an absolute minimum. Community college for the first 2 years can cut total costs by 30 to 50%. This choice has a minimal impact on your eventual career outcomes, but a massive impact on your bank account. Choosing in-state public universities over private universities can save you $100,000 or even more. It is a decision that can literally change your financial destiny. Scholarships, grants, and work study are all essential tools that change the math dramatically. You should pursue every single one of them to lower your total cost. Employer tuition assistance and choosing to live at home are also major factors. These practical choices help you avoid the trap of excessive student debt. A computer science degree that costs $40,000 in total is a completely different financial proposition. It represents a much more reasonable investment in your future. Compare that to the exact same degree that costs $160,000. The financial reality changes completely when you pay 4 times as much for the same outcome. Fourth, you need to consider alternative credentials and paths. Seriously, coding boot camps, trade certifications, professional licenses, and entrepreneurship are not consolation prizes for people who could not get into college. These alternatives are often much faster and cheaper paths to middle and upper middle class incomes. They offer a direct route to financial stability without the massive weight of debt that often comes with a 4-year degree. A licensed electrician or a professional plumber often out-earns the median college graduate. They are starting their work 4 years earlier, and they are doing it with absolutely no student debt at all. A graduate from a coding boot camp can enter the technology industry at a salary that is comparable to computer science majors. They achieve this at a tiny fraction of the time and the cost investment of a traditional university. I want to leave you with a fundamental reframe of this entire situation. The question you should be asking is not whether education has value, because of course it does. The real question is whether the specific education you are considering at the specific price you are being charged will provide the financial returns that justify the cost. This is the calculation that matters. For a generation, we have treated college as a sacred exception to normal financial analysis. It has been placed on a pedestal where nobody is supposed to ask about the numbers or the cost. We have sent teenagers to sign 6-figure loan documents without ever teaching them how to calculate the return on that investment. We have asked them to commit to a lifetime of payments without giving them the tools to understand the math. We have told them that questioning the value of a degree is anti-intellectual when in reality blind faith in any financial product is the truly anti-intellectual position. Real intelligence requires asking difficult questions about costs and benefits. The data is clear. Many college degrees are financial liabilities that leave graduates worse off than they would have been without them. They act as anchors instead of sails for a young person's financial future. Acknowledging this is not an attack on learning or education. It is an attack on a broken financial system that exploits the desire for knowledge. It is a recognition that an industry has exploited its protected cultural status to extract wealth from young people while delivering diminishing returns. This system has operated without challenge for far too long. You are allowed to do the math. You are allowed to look at the numbers and say, this does not make financial sense for me. You have the power to reject a bad deal. You are allowed to choose an alternative path without shame or apology. There is dignity and intelligence in choosing a future that actually builds wealth instead of destroying it. The people who would tell you otherwise often have a massive financial stake in you, continuing to believe that college is beyond financial scrutiny. They profit from your lack of questions. The schools that charge the tuition, the lenders who service the loans, and the employers who use degrees as a free screening mechanism all benefit from you not asking hard questions. But this is your money, your time, and your financial future. You are the one who has to live with the consequences of these decisions for decades to come. A degree is not automatically an asset. It is only an asset if the numbers actually work. If the cost outweighs the return, it is simply a liability with a fancy name. For many majors at current prices, the numbers simply do not work. We have to be honest enough to admit that the financial reality of college has shifted for millions of people, and pretending otherwise is the most expensive lie being told to young people today. It is a lie that can cost you your freedom and your financial peace for 30 years or more. I have spent way too much time thinking about this stuff, so you do not have to. My goal is to give you the clarity you need to make the best possible choice for your life. If this video helped you see your finances differently, and if it gave you a new perspective on the choices ahead of you, make sure to smash that like button. Your support helps this message reach more people who need to hear this mathematical truth. And subscribe for more content. Join our community as we continue to dive deep into the numbers that define our lives. I want to provide more content that challenges how you think about money. We will continue to question the traditional paths and find what actually works in the real world. I will see you in the next one. Take care of your future and stay focused on the math.